The bell above the diner door jingles with a hollow, tinny sound, a sound I've heard 1,000 times, but today it sounds like a warning. I'm not supposed to be here. My hands are wrapped around a coffee mug that's gone cold, tracing the chip on its rim for the 10th time. Across the booth, my best friend, Sarah, is talking about her daughter's soccer game, her words a blur of enthusiastic noise. I nod, I smile, the perfect portrait of listening, but all I can think about is the ghost of 2 pairs of hands on my skin and the terrifying silence of my own home. I'm 38 years old. I have been someone's wife for 12 years. I am the woman who never forgets an anniversary, who knows exactly how he takes his morning coffee black, one sugar who collects his pressed shirts from the cleaners without being asked. But if you were to ask me the last time my husband Mark truly looked at me, saw me, I couldn't tell you. Not in any real way. I've become furniture in my own life, polished and functional and utterly invisible. The loneliness I carry isn't the kind that screams. It's a quiet, constant hum, like the refrigerator motor in our spotless kitchen. It's in the neatly folded laundry, the silent dinners, the cold, empty space on the other side of our king-sized bed. I convinced myself I'd forgotten what desire felt like, but honestly, I hadn't forgotten at all. I had buried it. I buried it every single time I folded his socks. Every time we sat through another meal where the only question was, did you pay the electric bill? Every time I started another load of wash just to avoid going upstairs to that room that felt less like a sanctuary and more like a tomb. This story isn't something I planned. I never daydreamed about forbidden touches or secret glances. But it happened. And it started not with a bang, but with a slow, quiet drip of attention, like water wearing away stone. The first man, Caleb, is Mark's cousin. A few years younger than me, divorced too young with a quiet, steady presence. He's a contractor, always offering to help fix things around our house. The deck, a leaky faucet, a shaky banister. He started visiting more often, staying for a beer after finishing a job. His easy kindness a balm I didn't know I needed. Asterisk, the second man, Joel, is Caleb's closest friend from college. Where Caleb is sun-warmed timber, Joel is flint. Quieter, with intense, watchful eyes that seem to see past the careful facade I've built. He runs an auto shop in town. He began showing up with Caleb, a silent, observant shadow at first. It began innocently enough. Caleb would be over-fixing the gutters, and Joel would stop by with a part or just to shoot the breeze. They'd linger. I'd make iced tea. We'd talk about nothing, the weather, the old oak tree in the yard, the upcoming town fair. Then their visits started happening when Mark was away, which was often. Another business trip, another late meeting, another weekend golf tournament. I told myself their company was just a kindness, a way to fill the echoing silence of the house. But the air began to change. It became a tangible thing, thick and sweet as honey, whenever they were near. I noticed the small things. The way Joel would watch me stir a pot on the stove, as if the simple motion was fascinating. The way Caleb's hand would brush mine when passing a tool, the contact lasting a heartbeat too long. Once, I was reaching for a vase on a high shelf in the pantry. Joel was behind me, not offering to help, just there. I could feel the heat of his body, could hear his soft breath. I froze, my heart a frantic bird against my ribs, before mumbling an excuse and fleeing the room. They never made a move. Not overtly, but their presence became a question I was too afraid to answer out loud. The shift happened on a rainy Thursday. Mark was in Chicago, his flight home delayed by storms. Caleb came over to look at a pipe under the kitchen sink. Joel, unsurprisingly, was with him. The repair took minutes, but the rain intensified, trapping us inside. We ended up in the garage, sitting on overturned crates, listening to the drumbeat of water on the roof. The conversation lulled. Then Joel, staring at a rusty bicycle, said softly, "Do you ever feel like you're slowly disappearing in your own life?" The question hit me with the force of a physical blow. I stared at him, my breath caught in my throat. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Caleb, sitting beside me, reached over and placed his hand over mine where it rested on my knee. Just for a second, a simple, profound acknowledgement. I didn't pull away. The warmth of his skin was an anchor in a sea of numbness. Asterisk. That was the night I realized I wasn't the only one holding my breath. After that, the tension wasn't just my imagination. It was a living thing in the room with us. They began showing up together more frequently, a silent, unified front. Joel would bring over groceries, claiming he was at the store and thought we needed milk. Caleb would find endless small projects. They operated in a quiet tandem, filling the spaces Mark left empty. One afternoon, I opened the pantry and Joel was inside, putting away cans from a delivery. The small space was filled with him. He turned, not startled, as if he'd been waiting. "You do too much by yourself, Claire," he murmured, his voice low. I had to squeeze past him to get to the soup. When I did, my shoulder brushed his chest. I stopped, trapped between his body and the shelves. The world narrowed to that point of contact. I could smell the motor oil and wintergreen on his flannel. He didn't move. His hand came up, not to touch me, but to brace against the shelf beside my head, caging me in gently. My heart hammered so loudly I was sure he could hear it. "You're allowed to want things for yourself," he said, the words barely a whisper. A bitter laugh escaped me. "Not all things." "No," he agreed, his eyes holding mine. "But some things?" I left the pantry with a can of tomato soup I didn't want and a tremor in my hands that wouldn't stop. Meanwhile, Caleb's approach was different, softer. He'd stay late after a repair, and we'd sit in the living room in comfortable silence. One evening, Mark was again delayed. Caleb sat on the floor, back against the couch, and said to the ceiling, "It's a special kind of hell, isn't it? To be so lonely in a house that's not empty." Tears pricked my eyes. I simply nodded. He understood. The understanding was more dangerous than any flirtation. I was changing. I started wearing the lavender-scented lotion instead of the unscented one. I let my hair down more often. I found myself waiting by the window in the late afternoon, a strange anticipation coiling in my stomach. Whenever a truck engine sounded on our street, then came the storm. The weather reports warned it would be a big one. Mark texted from the airport. "Flight canceled. Stuck here tonight. Stay safe. Love you." I stared at the word love, feeling nothing but a vast, hollow distance. I typed back, "You too." An hour later, as the first winds began to howl, there was a firm knock at the door. Then another. I opened it to find both Caleb and Joel on my porch, soaked to the skin, water dripping from their jackets. Caleb held a box of emergency candles. Joel had a case of water. "Figured you shouldn't be alone in this," Caleb said, his gaze serious. Asterisk Joel just looked at me, his eyes saying everything his mouth didn't. I didn't ask questions. I stepped back, and they entered my home, bringing the scent of rain and cold night air with them. Their presence immediately changed the atmosphere of the house, making it feel charged, safe, and perilously exciting all at once. The power failed just after 9, plunging us into a darkness broken only by the frantic dance of lightning outside. We lit candles. Their flickering light painted the walls with moving shadows, making everything feel intimate and surreal. The wind screamed against the windows. We gathered in the laundry room, the most interior room without windows. Sitting on the floor beside the warm, humming dryer, the silence between us was no longer comfortable. It was electric, taut with unspoken words and forbidden possibilities. The gentle hum of the dryer was the only sound. A mundane soundtrack to the crisis unfolding inside me. Caleb sat across from me, his forearms resting on his knees. Joel leaned against the doorframe, his arms crossed, his eyes never leaving me. I had a robe cinched tightly over my pajamas, feeling both exposed and hidden. I should check the breaker, I said, my voice strangely small. It's not the breaker, Joel said quietly. It's the whole grid. Caleb picked up a candle, holding the base in his palm. The light flickered over his strong, capable hands. He looked directly at me, his kind eyes reflecting the flame. Do you want us to go, Claire? The question hung in the dark, humid air. It wasn't about the storm. It was about everything that had been building for weeks. I looked at his face, then at Joel's intense waiting expression. I said nothing. My silence was my answer. That was the moment the world tipped off its axis. They didn't move immediately. They let my non-answer settle, become real. Then Joel pushed himself off the doorframe. He took one step, then another, until he was standing right in front of me. Caleb rose slowly, setting the candle down carefully. As he did, his fingers brushed against mine. That simple touch was the spark. A jolt went through me, awakening every nerve ending I thought had long since gone dormant. I stood up. They closed the space around me, not like predators, but like men approaching something precious and fragile. Joel stood before me, Caleb behind. I could feel the solid warmth of Caleb's chest near my back, a steady presence. Joel's hands came up, hovering for a moment at my hips before settling there, his thumbs making slow, gentle circles on the terry cloth. My breathing hitched, audible in the quiet room. I didn't stop it. I didn't stop any of it. Caleb's hands came up to my shoulders, his touch firm yet hesitant. He began to knead the tension there, tension I'd carried for years. A soft, involuntary sound escaped my lips. Joel's eyes darkened at the sound. He leaned in, not to kiss me, but to rest his forehead against mine. The gesture was unbearably intimate, the connection that felt deeper than physicality. Claire. He breathed, my name a prayer on his lips. Behind me, Caleb's fingers found the knot of the robe's belt. He paused, giving me one last chance to refuse. I closed my eyes and let out a shuddering breath, my consent in the exhale. He loosened the belt. The robe fell open. The cool air hit my skin, but I wasn't cold. I was on fire. Joel's lips left my forehead and traced a devastatingly slow path down my cheek to my jaw, then to the sensitive hollow of my throat. His kisses were questions, and my skin answered yes, yes, yes. Caleb's hands smoothed the robe off my shoulders, letting it pull at my feet. His lips pressed against the top of my spine, a kiss of reverence. His hands settled on my bare waist, holding me as if I were made of glass and starlight. I was trembling, but not from fear. From a feeling so long forgotten it felt brand new. Being desired, seen, worshipped. They moved around me and with me in a silent, perfect understanding. There was no competition, only a shared focus. The reawakening of me. Joel's mouth finally found mine. The kiss was deep, slow, and filled with a pent-up longing that mirrored my own. It tasted like storm air and desperation and a hope I thought was dead. As he kissed me, Caleb continued mapping the territory of my back with his lips and hands, his touch igniting trails of lightning under my skin. I turned in their arms. Breaking the kiss with Joel to face Caleb, I cupped his face and brought his lips to mine. His kiss was different, softer, sweeter, but no less hungry. It was gratitude and understanding. For what felt like an eternity, they left me there in the dim, warm laundry room. With every touch, every kiss, they were piecing me back together. They weren't just touching my body. They were touching the lonely wife, the unseen woman, the silent partner, and reminding her she was still alive. It wasn't frantic or guilty. It was slow, deliberate, and profoundly healing. Asterisk, I didn't feel split between them. I felt whole because for the first time in years, I was receiving exactly what I needed: attention that was dual, focused, and entirely on me. They were two halves of a key, unlocking a door I had sealed shut. Asterisk, afterward, we lay tangled together on the soft pile of a laundry basket, our breathing slowly returning to normal. Caleb's head was pillowed on my stomach, Joel's fingers tracing idle patterns on my arm. The storm still raged, but inside our cocoon, there was only peace. No one spoke. Words would have shattered the fragile, perfect truth of what had happened. Asterisk, for that stolen hour, I wasn't Mark's wife. I was Claire. I was a woman rediscovering her own skin, her own heartbeat, her own right to want and be wanted. The sound of the front door unlocking was a gunshot in the silence. We froze. The spell shattered into a million icy shards. Joel moved first, swift and silent, pulling away and grabbing his clothes. Caleb followed, his face a mask of stricken panic. I scrambled to my feet, snatching my robe from the floor, my hands shaking so badly I could barely tie the belt. Asterisk, by the time Mark's footsteps reached the laundry room doorway, I was bent over the dryer, pretending to inspect a seam, my heart pounding so violently I felt sick. Caleb was at the electrical panel, talking loudly and unnaturally about fuse ratings. Joel was simply gone, vanished down the dark hallway. Asterisk, Mark stood in the doorway, dripping wet from the rain. "Power's out," he stated, leaning in to kiss my cheek. His lips were cold. "You okay?" Asterisk. "Fine," I said, my voice miraculously steady. "Caleb was just checking the panel." Asterisk, Mark nodded, clapping Caleb on the shoulder. "Good man. Thanks for looking out for her." The irony was a knife in my gut. He was completely, utterly oblivious. Asterisk, the morning after the storm, the world was washed clean and bright. The sun shone with a cruel innocence. Mark made coffee, talked about his chaotic trip, and left for work with a peck on my cheek. I stood at the kitchen sink, washing the same mug over and over, my skin still humming where they had touched me. Asterisk, the following days were a masterclass in pretending. Caleb and Joel didn't disappear, but a new, heavier silence hung between us. Their visits became more formal, announced by text. Joel would drop something off and leave without meeting my eyes. Caleb would finish his work quickly, his kind eyes now shadowed with guilt and something else, a lingering heat that mirrored my own. Asterisk. The hardest part was the return to the gray routine. Mark and I moved through our days like actors in a bland play. I went to dinner with him, wore the dress he liked, smiled at his jokes. That night, in our bed, when he reached for me, I let him. I closed my eyes and lay perfectly still, my mind 1,000 miles away in a warm laundry room, and I felt nothing. Absolutely nothing. The numbness was back, but now it was a conscious hell, because I knew what I was missing. Asterisk, the guilt was there, a low-grade fever, but it was strangely distant. Overpowering it was a deep, resonant grief, not for my marriage, which felt like it had been a ghost for years, but for the version of myself I had just rediscovered and was now forced to bury again. A week after the storm, I found one of their jackets, Joel's, I think, forgotten on a hook in the garage. I brought it to my face without thinking. It smelled like him, like cedar and workshop, and underneath, like me, like us. I dropped it as if burned, then carefully folded it, my movements precise and painful. Asterisk, the slip came on a Tuesday. I came home from the store to hear low voices in the backyard. Through the kitchen window, I saw them. Caleb and Joel, standing close by the fence, heads together in intense conversation. Caleb's hand was on Joel's shoulder, not in anger, but in what looked like solidarity, support. Then Joel looked up and saw me in the window. Asterisk, he didn't look away. He held my gaze across the distance, his expression unreadable but intense. Then he turned back to Caleb and gave a single firm nod. A decision had been made. My breath left my body. This wasn't over. Asterisk later, Mark came into the laundry room holding that same jacket. "Did you wash this?" he asked, a faint frown on his face. "It smells like your perfume." Asterisk, my blood turned to ice. "No," I managed. "Maybe it got mixed in with my things." Asterisk, he shrugged, tossed it on the counter, and walked away. I stared at the denim, the innocent culprit. My pretense was fraying, and the truth was beginning to seep through the cracks. Asterisk now. I live in a state of suspended animation. Every ring of the doorbell is both a threat and a promise. I don't know what I hope for, that they'll come and shatter this fragile glass life I've returned to, or that they'll stay away and let me pretend I can forget. Asterisk, I didn't choose to fall. But in that moment of storm and silence, when I let go of being just a wife, I pulled both of them into the vacuum of my need. And now I can't put any of it back. The loneliness I felt before is now an ache because I have a comparison. I know what it feels like to be seen, to be desired, to be found. Asterisk, I won't tell you it was right. I won't tell you the guilt doesn't visit me in the quiet hours of the night. But I will tell you this, a truth carved from the wreckage of my old life. When you go too long without a mirror to show you still exist, sometimes you'll find your reflection in the most forbidden of places. For one night, in the arms of two men I was never supposed to want, I didn't feel invisible anymore. And you can't unknow a feeling like that. It lives inside you, a secret, shining thing, reminding you that you are, against all odds, still alive. Asterisk, the story isn't about the betrayal, not really. It's about the awakening. And once awake, there is no going back to sleep. The question that hangs in the air of my quiet, perfect house is no longer what have I done? It's what will I do now? The door has been opened, and I'm still standing in its frame, caught between the darkness I know and the blinding, terrifying light of what I've discovered.